then after the formation of bones, we have the covering with the flesh. And after the covering of the flesh, Allah said, ثُمَّ أَنشَأْنَاهُ خَلْقًا آخَرَ. And then we made him into a new creation.
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم.
Assalamu alaikum. This question is for Shaykh Hatem. It is mentioned that the soul of a fetus comes after 120 days, and before that period of time, the idea of having an abortion may vary. Under what circumstances is it permissible to have an abortion?
Before 100, certainly after 100 and the 120th day, abortion is not permissible unless the mother's life or, the mother is in a significant danger. There is a significant danger to the mother's life or health, organs, etc. But before the 120 days, we have another cutoff, which is 40 days. So we have like from 0 to 40, 40 to 120, and then after 120 days. And the first 40 days, it's a little bit more flexible, except for the Malikis who forbid abortion from conception or even before conception. But except for the Malikis, the majority would be flexible with abortion in the first 40 days if there is a legitimate reason for it, and by mutual agreement of the two parents, upon mutual agreement of the two parents, and if there is a legitimate reason for it. But the earlier scholars were a lot more permissive concerning this than the contemporary scholars. But if you want the fatwa of our contemporary scholars, between 40 to 120 days, abortion would be permitted, in addition to the mother's health, because the mother is always more important, by the way. In addition to the mother's health, between the 40 and 120 days, if there is like a severe deformity that is not that is incompatible with reasonable good life, that is not to be missing a limb, that is not blindness, because a lot of blind people contributed to life a lot more than others. It is not, so it is a severe deformity, severe illness that is not compatible with a decent life. In this case, it would be permissible according to the majority of contemporary scholars, and certainly the majority of earlier scholars who were actually more flexible with abortion than the contemporary scholars, to have abortion upon mutual agreement between the two parents. Now with the advances in modern medicine, the idea of 40 and 120 and how we can justify the 120 when in fact embryogenesis ends much earlier than this. By the 56th day of fetal life, embryogenesis would have ended, and we would be talking only about development in terms of growth, but all the organs would be there. There is no necessity that the blowing, certainly the embryogenesis, the idea of the formation of the fetus, everything does happen in the first 40 days, and that is Hadith Hudhaifa versus the understood implications of Hadith Abdullah bin Mas'ud. But there is no necessity to say that upon completion of embryogenesis, the soul would be breathed into the fetus, because it would make more sense that the soul that there would be a lag. فخلقنا العلقة مضغة فخلقنا المضغة عظاما ثم كسونا العظام لحما فخلقنا العلقة مضغة فخلقنا المضغة عظاما فكسونا العظام لحما ثم أنشأناه خلقا آخر فتبارك الله أحسن الخالقين. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said that we turn the alaqa into mudgha and the mudgha into bones, and the bones will be then covered by the flesh, and then thumma, So with everyone it was fat, which means immediately thereafter, immediately thereafter, immediately thereafter. But then after everything was finished, and keep in mind that there is some lag here, or there are two phases here between the mudgha and ثم أنشأناه خلقا آخر, and then we made him into a new creation. That is al-azam and al-lahm. So after the mudgha, we have the formation of bones, and then after the formation of bones, we have the covering with the flesh, and after the covering of the flesh, Allah said, ثُمَّ أَنشَأْنَاهُ خَلْقًا آخَرَ, and then we made him into a new creation. And Ali radiallahu anhu said, we breathed the soul into him. We made him into a new creation. We breathed the soul into him. So it is very possible that everything would have been done at 40 days in terms of the embryogenesis, and then the soul would have been breathed at 120 days. And there are several ijma'as that have been reported that the soul would be breathed at 120 days. So even if the implication of the hadith is questionable, and hadith Huzaifa, or the apparent meaning of hadith Huzaifa, will be accepted over the implication of hadith Abdullah bin Mas'ud, still the ijma' has been reported by several scholars that the soul would be breathed at 120 days. Given that, that is why Islam is more flexible with abortion prior to the 120 days upon mutual agreement of the two parents, and if there is a legitimate reason that is defined by most of the contemporary scholars nowadays to mean a severe deformity or some illness that is not compatible with decent life.